Welcome, everybody, to the Strength Solutions podcast, and we have an amazing one. We're going to talk about eating more to lose weight.
What?
Then we're talking about this weekend. It was a good weekend.
It was.
Rent prices, 11-year-old, gene therapy, fitness then and now, Reddit finds, our 2 studies, and 4 fitness questions. Now, if you're looking for us, we're on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us. Also, we are on YouTube, guys. Uh-oh.
Make sure you slap that subscribe button.
Subscribe. All right. And if you're looking for a website, it's ssempowered.com. We have free blogs, free guides. Also, we have programs for their own purchase. Then you can email us future fitness questions at strengthsolutionsempowered@gmail.com. We have social media. We have Facebook, Strength Solutions, TikTok, strength.solutions.pod, and Instagram, Strength Solutions Empowered. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
All right, bro. I'm about to say the most controversial thing.
You know, that's what we do here, man.
Gotta say it. But if you eat more, you can lose weight.
Uh-oh. How?
Eat less, and you're going to gain a shit ton of weight.
Uh-oh. Yeah, this is a debated topic, huh?
This is a pretty debated topic, but I'm here to tell you, feed the beast.
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, so my first experience with this is me personally.
Yeah, okay.
And other clients that I had. And a lot of them will come in, I'm eating this, I'm eating that. And they're not really eating that many calories.
Yeah.
Until it comes to those times where they start binging.
Right,
so this low 800, 1,200 calories throughout the week. And then the weekend comes and they just start binging.
Yep.
I've been guilty of this. This is why I didn't really lose weight. I understand calories in and calories out is a lot more complex too than just your food going in.
Yeah.
So nobody talks about metabolism adapting and you building muscle and then you actually getting away with more calories.
Right. Yeah. I think that's one of the big things. Like you said, I have a lot of clients who come in and I'll say like, hey, I need you to track, these couple of days for me just so I can see what you're eating. Or if they can't or whatever it is, I'll just have them. My favorite question is, what did you eat yesterday? Tell me everything you ate yesterday, before you came in here. And they'll kind of go through it. And it's always funny because you listen to them and you're like, that's not that many calories. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like they're like, oh, well, I eat twice a day and, I eat this much for dinner and, lunch is kind of whatever. And then so I'm like, okay, well, something has to be going on here, right? Like there has to be somewhere. And I find a lot of the time it's like you said, like snacking, binging through the weekends, stuff like that, where they don't realize that they're intaking more calories than they kind of assume they are, Same thing, like you said, too. I think the main thing with this one isn't so much that you'll gain or lose weight. I think it's how the body fat percentage changes, right?
Your body composition.
Right, your body composition. So, like you said, in my experience, when I was younger, the first time I ever lost weight, I ran a whole bunch. I started eating like way less than I was. I wouldn't say I was eating nothing. I remember trying to eat around like 2,000 calories. And I lost a lot of weight. But of course, I'm sure most of it was a lot of muscle. Because I wasn't really trying to prioritize protein. I didn't understand that concept yet. All of my working out was cardio based, right? I didn't do any resistance training at all. I didn't do anything because I was young and I didn't really have any options, But I think this is where people go wrong, right? Because then, you look in the mirror and you're just like, this is what I expected. This isn't what I thought I was going to look like. Where's the definition? Where's all this stuff, right? And then that's when I think people get stuck in the cycle of I need to lose more weight. I need to lose more weight now. I need to lose more weight until it's like, okay, well, how much is enough,
Yeah. And I think a lot of people this message is really hard to convey because you get leaner and you lose weight and you're doing cardio, but you're also losing a lot of muscle tissue. Your metabolism adapts downward.
Yeah.
And they don't realize like you're just eating less and less and less. And then they end up bouncing back twice as hard.
Right. Because now they have no metabolism at all.
No metabolism. It just drops, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then also it's hard when you see programs like Beachbody out there and people are just jumping and they lose all that weight first, but you'll listen to people long term that do those things and they're like, the first time I did Shanti's like workout or
Tybo?
whatever. or Taibo, yeah. That I lost all this weight, but the next time I went to do it, it was so much harder, and I didn't lose weight, and yada yada yada. Well, you lost a shit ton of muscle in the first time.
So now it's literally harder.
It makes it
because
harder.
you don't have any muscle mass to get you through it, right? I was talking to a client earlier this week actually, and we were having a conversation about stuff like this, and I had asked them like, okay, what'd you do in the past? How did you work out in the past? Or when you were at your goal weight, a year ago or whatever it was, what were you doing and things like that. And so they were kind of telling me what happened, and they were like, it's everybody always says it worked. I lost all this weight. I did everything, and then they're like, but after a year, I kind of stopped doing it. I sort of fell off. I started doing something else. And I was like, okay, then like it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
It didn't work. It wasn't sustainable. If you did it for a year, honestly, I won't believe anything worked unless you tell me it's like 5 years and more. If you can sustain it for that long, then I would say like, oh, okay, yeah, that was pretty good. What happened? You must have had some like life event happen or something that kind of knocked you off, right? But if you're telling me 6 months, 3 months, a year, even, I'm going to say that's not long enough. That's not a long enough time.
Isn't that your favorite thing to hear in a consultation though, where they say, it worked, and then I was like, then why are you in the office right now that we're doing this consultation?
Why are you about to pay me a whole bunch of money right now?
Because it didn't work. It's not a lifestyle change. It was just something you did, and you lost weight, and you thought you felt good. You thought you were doing it right, but it wasn't sustainable for your lifestyle.
Right. And so, man, I really try, like, it's funny because I was telling her, I was like, I really try and give real advice. You know what I mean? Like, if you're going to go to the grocery store, buy things you're actually going to eat. Like, don't buy a bunch of stuff if you don't have the time to cook it, or if you don't have the time.
Yeah, like when people go in that juicing phase, bro.
Stuff like that, right? Where they kind of go through these like big fad things where they're like, yeah, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna do it, and then it's like it lasts 3 days, or you throw everything in the temporary garbage, right? The freezer. Mm-hmm. you never touch it. Yeah. And you're just, and then you go out and you buy fast food or whatever it is or something. And it's like, you really have to sit down and be like, what am I actually going to do? What's really going to be sustainable for my life? And what can I do for a long period of time?
Yeah. So I think this is a good part to like really talk about the complexities in the metabolism. So one of the studies later that we talk about is going to go into, you don't realize like stress plays a role in your metabolism from day to day.
In your recovery.
Your sleep plays a role day to day in your metabolism and your recovery. Your eating plays a role, your fitness. And we want to bog it down to this one thing, but everything works together and it completes the signal for you, whether it's anabolic or catabolic for the body.
Yeah.
And it's important, before we go into what to do, to understand, we're to tell you individual things to do, but you need to do them all. I hate when we try to break something down. Which one's more important? Is it fitness or is it nutrition?
Yeah.
One plays a role in the other. One's easier to do than the other. One may take longer to learn for somebody than the other. So, I mean, there's people who can just knock out their nutrition, but it's hard for them to lift weights and move very well.
Yeah.
Then some people, they can get their sleep down real easily, but they can't do anything else. Where do you start? It's going to be individual, but everything plays a role at the end of the day, the further you go. And that's why we released the cost of getting lean, to show people the different things that has to happen for you to lose body percent fat.
Yeah. And like all the aspects that come into it, right? And if you have trouble with them, like for me, I was like, I'm going to take it slow. I've been working out for forever. So like I have the resistance training consistency thing down, right? I don't really need help with that. So now it's like, okay, now I'm going to focus on my stress, right? I feel like I focused on stress pretty much all of last year, right? Like trying to get that under control, figuring out what I needed to do for my life. Now this year it's sleep. Now my goal is trying to get my sleep in order, and it's a process, right?
Yeah.
But I think that doing it like that, because it does sound daunting, right? When we're like, hey, you got to get your nutrition in order, your stress in order, your sleep in order, you got to resistance train, and you're like, well, how the hell am I supposed to do any of that? Okay, well, you probably can't, right? It's sort of impossible, so try and do it step by step. Once one is starting to work, cool. Maintain that, right? Like keep it going now. And now we're going to add in the next step, right? And the next step. And then at some point you'll have it all, but you just got to take it slow.
Yeah. So let's talk about the first thing that I like to do with my clients and most people out there is to focus on just strength training and eating high protein.
Yeah.
I think it's a big mistake that we go into this like HIIT routine, working out all hard. Like, no, let's build a foundation of strength. if we go back to our certifications as trainers, the very bottom of the piece is core stability and strength.
Yeah.
It doesn't start with a high intensity or endurance or anything like that. It's all about strength. So when you're programming strength, what does it look like? Is a big deal. I think not enough people take a long enough rest period. They go from one exercise to another. 2, they focus on exercises that are not going to create that anabolic signal or really push the envelope. And the third thing I see wrong with strength training a lot of times is it's exercise choice, right? And then not big enough gross motor movements. The last thing I see is hitting push-pull legs for most people and setting up their programming like that is completely wrong unless you're going to go 5 to 6 days a week to the gym. Most people will go 2 to 3. A full body routine is much better overall.
Yeah, especially if you're doing that. I think one of the main things that you said here was exercise choice. I think that's a huge one that people misinterpret, right? Because there's a lot of places like I won't say what it is, but when I first started training, I was gonna go work for this company, and they were telling me we had to go do like classes, right, to like learn how to do the classes and things like that, how it worked, stuff like that, and also so you could just kind of like engage and everything. So I did a lot of classes, and I liked it because it was very like fun and endurance based, and it was cool and everything like that. And I was like, this is all right, you know, it's not what I'm used to, but like it is what it is. It was very like boot camp-esque, things like that. Well, sure enough, time goes on, and they liked to do their things in phases. Sorry, and so the next phase was like strength training, and I was like, oh hell yeah, like that. I'm super excited now because this is what I like to do, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and then so like strength day comes around, I roll up, and I'm like, I honestly I remember thinking, I was like, how the hell are they gonna do this? Like we're outdoors, they're bringing equipment here. Like what are they gonna do that we can do strength training with? And it was just like the same stuff, like still running around, still just pushing, different name. Maybe we're holding dumbbells now because before we weren't. And it's like, that's not strength training. It just isn't. It's just cardio with weights, right? We talk about that a lot, right? Where lots of classes or things like that will deem themselves strength training, but it's just cardio with weights. You're still just doing circuits. You're still just doing stuff. And strength training and the exercise choices are just different. And it sucks too, because you might be like, well, I am doing squats. I am doing this stuff, in a class or something, but it's like the intent, the way you're doing it, the rest periods, right? All that stuff is completely different.
Yeah. And so the second part of the equation is for the nutrition half is eating protein, right? So protein helps recover, facilitates movements or reactions in the body. It's vital, right? And so they'll tell you the minimum protein target is this much. Minimum and optimal are 2 different conversations. So if you're not getting enough protein and you feel sore from every one of your workouts, that's the reason why. You're never recovering. You're not adapting. You're not getting better. You're not pushing the metabolism better. I find that if I could get most people, there might be a handful of people who can't handle protein very well, or they have some sort of issue with like gout or something like that, where you can up your protein to 1 gram per pound of body weight of your choice, right? So I eat actually more than 1 gram per pound of body weight. I usually eat around like 220. Actually, it's about 1 gram per pound of body weight, just not my lean mass.
Okay, I see.
But 220. But if you could get yourself there, you're gonna be satiated. It's going to stop you eating from like sugary foods. Yeah. It does more than just recover the body. It makes you not overconsume calories.
Right. And I think the thing too is that a lot of like high protein items are going to be low in calorie too. So you can still feel that feeling of being satiated and everything like that without having to intake a lot of calories. For a while, I was eating these like little turkey meatballs, and I was doing like a double scoop of protein, and I would eat them together. Dude, by the end of the meal, I was like, I felt like I was going to die, but like in total, I probably had like maybe 600 calories, but I probably had like 60, 70 grams of protein, in that one thing, like 50 from the shake itself, and then everything else along with it. So I probably had more, and it's like, by then I was like, I don't want to eat anything else, I'm not hungry at all or anything. And you have to recover like that. I think that something that you said is that if you're sore after every workout, then you're not recovering, right? You're not getting something from that workout. And the crazy thing is that some people will chase that.
Yeah.
they'll chase that soreness every single time, and it's like, you don't understand that what you're doing is not beneficial. You're not getting to where you want to go. You're just chasing some feeling.
Yeah. After you get that protein down, though, you need to hit a maintenance target or a way to fuel the body, because there's a surplus, there's a deficit. It's going to take you time to find out they're very individual, but there's like a safe zone, right? Where maybe let's say 2000 is your maintenance, but you go to 2100 and you could build muscle and lose body percent fat in this Goldilocks zone. You just can't go too far from it and build your metabolism, and you're to look leaner and be leaner. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about eating more, is giving you the look that you want.
Right.
It's crazy because I've learned this over and over again, right? So I literally just texted you this morning, bro, like I'm weighing this high.
You say like 218 something like
219, and I feel leaner. My clothes feel a lot leaner, more off me than I did before. And I feel like I learned this lesson over and over, that eating enough is what really helps you build that muscle, right? Eventually, at some point, I am going to truly cut and get down to a lower body percent fat. But I told like my client, like until I hit 40, I'm going to try to chase this goal, as much muscle as I can. I still do exercises that require transverse plane, sprinting, jumping, and I feel really good. Then I'll cut eventually my body percent fat, maybe to like 12, 13%.
Yeah, whatever it is.
I want to do something I enjoy till this point, right?
It's funny. I was talking to a client today, and she was saying that she had seen somewhere online that at a certain point for like women, they like can no longer build muscle at like a certain age or something like that.
Oh,
and I was like, huh? And I was like, where did you hear that from? So she was kind of telling me a little bit, and I was like, it's like, I don't really know. I was like, I know that hormones play a big part of it, especially estrogen plays a part in building muscle as well, right? We don't talk about it as much, but it does, right? And so I was like, maybe I can understand sort of why they're saying that. Like maybe after you hit certain age, menopause or whatever it is, like you're not producing as much hormones. Maybe it gets harder to build muscle. But I was like, I don't think that there's any point in life where you like, at this point it's just all downhill from here. You know what I mean? Yeah. You can't build anymore. And I was like, maybe your goal at that point should be less to build muscle and more to maintain what you've had over the years, but like, I don't really know about that,
dude, so like,
I was like,
that's why I'm trying to build as much muscle as possible, because I know it does get harder, one. And then two, I've seen videos of 80-year-old women. I have 70-year-old clients that deadlift a crazy amount of weight who got stronger. And I think we just think like, what's the point? Well, if I'm not going to build any more muscle, or you could develop more strength, and it just may take you longer.
Right. Yeah. I think that's the thing, right? Because I remember reading in like my training books and stuff like that when I was first getting my certification, like that when you get older clients, right, especially older clients who haven't worked out before, so I'd say like 65 and above, right, that's what I consider like older. Anything below that, to me, I'm like, you're good, we can still do a lot, even if you're older, you can too. But at that point, I remember in the book, it was like, it's more about maintaining what they have at this point than trying to make them do anything, right?
And the funny part is I have a lot of older clients, and I see improvement in my clients. Still to this day, I have 77, 75, 76. I mean, I got a guy who was on a cane, literally like 3 notches down. We got him to the top notch on the cane. So like this problem is you need to self-empower yourself as an individual. It doesn't matter your age. You got to understand it's a process. Fall in love with the process overall.
Fall in love with the process.
And eat a bunch of protein. Lift weights. It's just going to take you fucking time, right?
Yep.
I do want to talk the inverse effects, right? Eating too little and what it tells your body. It tells your body to slow down, right? So this is why a lot of people who yo-yo and cut over and over again, and it gets harder and harder to lose weight when they bounce back. And this is what we're seeing with semaglutide and the bounce back, is because they're not pairing it with strength training. Is that they're bouncing back because your body's telling you need to pare down muscle. You need to pare down your metabolism. They've done a study in, I think it was Minneapolis, and it was when the Jews came over from camps and stuff like that. Their metabolism was super low, but your body's so great at adapting that their metabolism jumped back to normal over time.
Wow.
So remember this, if you're eating too little, and I could tell you when I start eating little and I go on a small cut, that's why I don't cut for very long. my libido goes down, my energy goes down. I can tell my strength goes down. Your body's protecting itself.
Right.
And so everything's going to go down.
Yeah, it's an adaptation that is supposed to happen, right?
Yeah.
You really have to, like, I like to say that our bodies are running on old tech, right? This is old technology that we have in, right? As much as we like to think that the world has changed around us, I think like interactions between people, things like that haven't as much, right? But like maybe food is more abundant, things like that. So that's where it becomes difficult. But anyway, talking about this, it's like if you are feeding yourself less, if you're thinking about it in the past, that means that food wasn't available, right? There wasn't food that you could have, right? And especially if you're still running yourself on empty, like going to, HIIT classes, or you're just really stressed out or not sleeping or whatever, you're in like a stressful environment, right? Your body is trying to survive. So it's going to do what it can to survive, right? Just like anything else. So it's going to pare down muscle. It's going to lower your metabolism so that you can survive through sort of a quote unquote like famine, right? Or something like that. And that's all it's doing. But I think that we don't understand that that's the reaction that ends up happening.
So the last thing that eating too little is it makes you very catabolic, right? And it tears down tissue and muscle versus being anabolic. And this is why we tell people you need to go through bulking phase. You need to go through a surplus.
Yeah.
You need to get, and it'll help you get leaner in the long run. There's a guy I follow, Lay Norton, and he talks about what nobody wants to do in the fucking physique world is gain fat. And he's like, it's just a fucking byproduct to get you to where you need to go.
Right.
Now, he's not saying gain an abnormal, like get up to 25% body fat. No, for a guy, maybe he's talking about, hey, you're at 10%. Maybe we could get you to 13% body fat, but I need you to gain muscle, which are fat. And then when you start losing, you're lose a little bit of muscle, but you're not going to lose as much if you do it correctly.
Right.
And
at the end of it,
it's playing this game back and forth.
Right. You should end up with a net higher amount of muscle by the end of it. Right. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think too many times we get stuck in that deficit all the time, the mentality, and this is why it's getting harder and harder. And it's hard to tell people my age and my age group because we've been told nothing but like lose weight, lose weight, lose weight.
Yeah.
I do think the younger generation, like Gen Z and stuff, is starting to see more like, let me get stronger, let me build mass. And it's becoming more known the importance of muscle, like with Gabba, Leon. And all
I see more videos now, like on TikTok or Instagram or whatever it is of people who are like saying stuff like that, right? Like, oh, I built this body in the gym, right? Like I lifted weights, I lifted heavy, I did things like that. And that helped me lose weight as opposed to doing, here's me 1 year after resistance training versus 5 years of cardio, right? And it's like totally different, right? I see a lot of fitness influencers that I follow. Some of them are here based in San Antonio, and it's like they are always in the gym fucking lifting heavy, man. Yeah. Like some of the big ones, like streamer girls and stuff like that, are like in the gym lifting heavy. I see their videos, they're not doing like silly little things. They're like deadlifting and squatting and benching and stuff like that. And it's cool to see them gaining traction because now people are kind of like getting on that train,
So when I talked about eating more at the beginning, before we go on to our weekend, it's literally more about being leaner with more muscle than it is about you just losing weight.
Right.
And too many times we focus on weight versus quality of tissue. Always focus on quality of tissue because that at the end of the day is going to allow you to feel better, to sleep better hormone profile. Everything is based off of quality of tissue.
Right.
All right. So we had this weekend.
Yeah.
What'd you think, bro?
Dude, congrats to our friend.
Yeah.
Amazing. Yeah. You know who you are, man. Dude, fantastic. It was so much fun. One of our friends got married this weekend, went down, I guess, to Corpus Christi.
What do we say, up or down?
Because I know,
like, we just went to be like, what if in the inverse world, we're actually down and that's up?
No. Yeah, so I went to Corpus. Both of us were there. Dude, it was a blast, man. I had a good time over there. It was really fun. Yeah, I had a great time. We had a nice little place like next to the beach. It was freaking freezing, dude. I was not expecting it to be so cold. Like I kept thinking to myself, I was like, it's by the Gulf, it'll be warm, know. And I think it was the wind. There was so much wind. Yeah.
If it wasn't for the wind, it would be good.
It would have been nice, yeah. But it was great, dude. How was your stay?
Dude, so I'm gonna talk about a couple of things that happened there.
Okay.
But the first one is dude, when y'all lifted me up, I was like, there's no way they're lifting me up
Oh.
that easy off the ground. Right?
Yeah, yeah.
And like, when I lifted y'all up, I was like, fuck, man, lifting weights makes it so much easier.
Okay,
Right?
so I was just talking about this. I'll talk about this a little bit. So I was talking about this with Camille because when we were doing that, she had like ran to the restroom or something like that. And I sent her the pictures later on, and I was like, dude, it was so funny. Like, me and Brandon were like, oh, Edwin, let's lift you up. And I was like, I thought to myself the same thing. I was like, damn, that was fucking easy, dude. Especially with Brandon there too, right? Like, you were just like, whoop.
Yeah, like,
and
you
then,
could throw me up.
Yeah, and
I was
then
a little
like
ragdoll.
picked Brandon up too. You guys picked me up, and it was like easy, you know. And then I remember our friend's friend was there too, right? And we were like, oh, like come, you know, like let's lift you up. And he was like, no. And you had said something funny, and you were like, bro, we lift, we can do it, you know. And I was like, how, like, I don't know, liberating is that, you know what I mean? Like, I was like, we got you, dude. Like, it's gonna be easy, you know what I mean? I think especially after we had done each other, we were like, oh, we could lift anything up. You know,
Dude, it was so cool, dude.
Yeah.
So some things happened, right? So we had the wedding part
Uh-huh.
of church,
Yep.
and then we had a gap, and so me and Amanda go to the Whataburger because we're like,
Oh yeah, you said you were like starving,
we're
right?
fucking starving, bro. And you know, we're there talking, and we talked to the lady at the cashier register, and
You guys like sat inside, or
yeah, we sat inside,
Okay.
and I literally said, or we said, we're going to a wedding. It's right up the road here. It's in the community center. And she was like, oh, okay, cool. And then we started talking, and we're just doing our thing. We sit down, start eating our meal. And she comes up. She's like, when do y'all get married? And we were like, no, we're already married. Like,
Yeah.
we've been married now. She's like, oh my God, y'all are so like so youthful, and like y'all are brand new in y'all's relationship and stuff like that. And I was thinking, because this is not the first time this happened to me and Amanda.
Just a question, how old was the person?
They were like my age.
Okay. Yeah.
And they're just like, you're so youthful in y'all's relationship, the way y'all talk to each other and joke around. And it made me really think that, and I saw a video earlier today about it in relationships, couples need to learn how to play.
Yeah.
It's a big part of
Yeah.
it. Like, we just play and joke around, and we had fun and stuff.
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
that.
It's different, right? Yeah. Cause especially in like my relationship now too, like there's so much just, I think there's something to it too, because we were friends for so long before being in a relationship. So our relationship in general is just more friendship related, you know? And then there's also the added on intimacy and things like that. And I think that's what makes it good, you know, is that you have that ability to still just like be friends, you know, and like fuck around or talk trash to each other or whatever it is, you know, like just having fun. And I think that, like you said, people see that, and that's so funny. What a weird observation from that person, because I wonder what their relationships have been like or anything like that. Because,
well, I could tell you this person was not with somebody.
okay, yeah. But it's just like the way that you can tell is that like they said, when are you guys getting married, right? And you were like, no, we've already been married. We've been married for a long time now, whatever. So to me, that makes me think that they think that after you get married, your relationship just like crumbles, falls apart. You lose that friendship. You lose the fun. You lose all that stuff. That's only in the first year, you know, after that, it just goes away. And it's like, I wonder why we sort of perceive things like that. Because we do, you know, a lot of times people are like, oh, once you get married, you know,
it's
that's
all done
it.
here.
You know?
You have no more sex, and you know.
Yeah, exactly. Like, how many times do we hear that? Like, oh, if you like it now, it's all
had
gonna
like
go.
sex like 20 times at the wedding.
Yeah. I was wondering where y'all were the whole time. Edwin, why are you so sweaty, dude?
Why is your white shirt all like sweated out?
Yeah. What's going on, dude? But yeah, I think that's an interesting thing, right? Is that like we just kind of assume that if you're married, then you're like unhappy, you know?
Yeah. So so another thing happened too. Right?
Okay. Yeah.
So I walk away. I notice.
Same place? Y'all are still there?
No, this is at the community center.
Oh, okay.
That's now we're at the reception.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Okay. I walk away, and I guess this lady started talking to Amanda, and I didn't know. And this is not the first time this has happened to Amanda.
Okay.
Right? So the lady comes up and says, oh, you could tell how much he loves you and how much he adores you. And, you know, make sure you treat him well, and that, you know,
you're in the kitchen.
Be careful, because if you don't do things well, you know, there's always other people to like,
oh my God,
take your guy. Right. And so in my head, I'm just like,
how old was this person?
This person was like an elderly.
That's
right?
what I had. Yeah.
So she was more in her like probably 50s or something. Right. So wisdom. And so me and Amanda had this conversation, and we were looking at it from two different perspectives. She looked at it like this lady was just saying, keep on doing what you're doing, show what your love for your husband and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I said, I could have took it as, hey, you got a special guy there who really cares about you. Be careful because other women will come after him.
Sure. I think she was kind of saying both.
Right?
Right. I think she's kind of saying both. Like, hey, you're doing really, really good right now. Because clearly he loves you, right? Clearly we can see
But
it.
what am I doing?
So, here, you're saying that. And let me tell you something too. So me and Camille were obviously there, right? And we spend a lot of time together. Like we're all, together a lot of the time. And so we were there. You guys would like go out and dance all the time and come back. And we'd go out every once in a while and come back and do things. And there was one moment, I think it was like towards the end, where you and Amanda had gone again. Mm-hmm. And I know you love dancing, right? And you're fucking awesome at dancing too, yeah. And so like you guys were just like going off or whatever. And like, dude, every time you guys went out and we were just like sitting or resting or whatever, Camille was like, oh, I love them. Look at how cute they are. Look at them do that. Like, look at this. Look at whatever. They're so, Edwin is so funny or like, whatever it is. And it's like, you can see it. Like you can see that you guys are friends, that you love each other, that you care about each other, because you're out there, you're having fun. It's not you being like, oh, I gotta go dance with my wife, like I don't want to do this or whatever. Or like, she's asking you over and over again to go dance. You're pulling her out there more. She probably wants to sit down and she's like, fuck.
My feet hurt.
Right, exactly. But yeah, dude, you can see it. And I don't think that you're doing anything specific, right? I think you just fucking love your wife for you actually love her, And I don't think people are used to seeing that, And it's like, because Camille will say often to me, like, if we go do something or we go to a convention or we go just hang out with friends or we do something silly or she wants to, dress up today and go do whatever, I'm game for it, Yeah. And it's funny because she's always like, oh, I love that you do that. Like, I love that you're so like whatever, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, is that unnatural? Like, is that not what happens? And she was like, 90% of men, like she always says, 90% of men hate their wives. And I was like,
why does she have that view of men? Like,
no, I don't think it's
is that a realistic statistic?
I don't think so. But I think again, it's one of those things where you hang out with people at work or you talk to people and they're always talking about like, oh, my husband never does this or, oh my, and like, there's always this like sort of, how do you say it? Stereotype of like, that, once marriage happens, you just like, oh, you just hate each other. I don't want to hang out with you anymore or whatever it is, And I think that seeing people who are married dancing out on the dance floor is like unheard of at this point,
what's crazy to me is this has happened to me and Amanda multiple occasions, like multiple weddings we've been to and things like that. And it's just crazy to me. And then every time they go up to her, they don't come up to me and say, your wife loves you and like, she's amazing. Like, why do they go up to her and not me? And when I leave somewhere, like, I think I was either getting us water or going to the restroom or something. And I was like, why should she talk to you? Like,
maybe it's like,
I told her,
why are you fucking talking to people? Huh?
Maybe it's safer, safer to talk to a wife. And then it's safer to like, a wife is supposed to like be like the loving character.
So that's what I was going to say. I was going to say two things. So yeah, I think that there's a little bit of like, oh, we could talk woman to woman here and have that conversation. Just like, I mean, guys do the same thing, like, no, but exactly. But I think that you're right. I think it's that we just assume that you're being loved, right? Because she's a woman, of course, right? Like, of course you're being loved. Of course you're being whatever. You know what I mean? No one's going to come over and be like, wow, Edwin, like Amanda really loves you. I might do something like that, right? Because I know you more, or a friend might do something, but you're never in a million years going to have a stranger come up to you and say that to you. You know what I mean? Especially not another guy, it might be another woman, something like that, but it's never going to be another guy. But that's an interesting thing that I think that's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah. It was just, I don't know. It's just so interesting. It's happened multiple times.
That is interesting, man.
Yeah. The wedding was awesome, man.
It was awesome.
And then we got back and then we went to, K-Pot. It's like
it's a new Korean place, right?
Yeah. Where you can barbecue in the middle.
Yeah.
Or like,
did you guys do the barbecue? Or did you do the soup?
Did both.
Oh, so you paid extra?
It's $5. I didn't pay extra. My brother-in-law paid extra.
Oh, there you go. You're like, I'll get the most expensive thing on there.
Dude,
was it good?
So good.
Have you had Korean barbecue before?
I have.
Okay, yeah.
But it's so good.
Yeah, bro.
Like,
dude.
Oh, man, dude.
KBBQ is on another level, man. It's super delicious, yeah.
So we were talking about it before or afterwards. Like if we went back, just me and her, we'd have to do the $5 extra for both because I want the barbecue. She likes the whole noodles. And
she likes the soup.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't need water. I'm good.
Yeah, don't give me that shit. Yeah, dude, I would do the same thing. I just want the BBQ, man. I don't want any noodles.
All right. So you sent me this video talking about rent prices and stuff like that. Yeah. So I'll let you explain it because I did half watch it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So here's what it was. So it was a video. It was kind of long, so I kind of half watched it too. But it was this girl, and she was talking about how like rent prices are going up, apartments and things like that, or housing or whatever it is, are just like continuing to kind of escalate, right? And we're kind of haven't really seen a downward trend back as of late. And you know, that she was like, why is this happening? Like, whatever. Of course, we all know inflation, et cetera, et cetera. But this other person sort of had another take. It was a little more conspiracy theory-esque, you know, but also there's like a little hint of like, damn, is that what's happening?
There is some truth to it.
Yeah, yeah, because what she was saying is that they are systematically, right, creating this increase in rent or things like that, or anything really, like groceries and all that stuff that we see that's kind of just become more expensive in order to sort of create a new type of, I guess you could say, slavery, right? Where we are forced to work in order to, you know, earn the things in life, right? And it's not things that are now luxuries, right? Like it's not like, oh, I'm forced to work if I want a super nice car, or if I want a mansion, or if I want whatever, right? Now it's like I'm forced to work to barely survive, you know, to barely make my car payments, to barely, you know, afford rent on my apartment this week, whatever it is. And she was saying that's just sort of like the systematic creation so that we are always wage slaves. You know, we can never get ahead. We can never reach that 1%. We can never, there will always be a disparity, you know?
So I think part of that is kind of true, but also I will say this. People don't understand free market.
Mm-hmm.
If people just stop fucking buying houses for a ridiculous amount
sure,
and overbid over and over again and do those things, things would go down. If we start buying shitty products and getting loans just to buy shoes and shit like that, it would go down. That's how the free market works.
Yeah.
Actually, if you went into Walmart recently, some of the items have gone down because people can only afford certain groceries. And these companies like Nabisco, Frito-Lay's are noticing people are not buying their product as much.
They're going to adjust,
so
right?
They have to adjust. Stop with this victim mentality of they're after us. The market responds to what people do.
Mm.
The problem is people are emotional and people are not using their logic and saying, I'm going to stop spending my money here and that's how I'm going to vote.
Yeah.
And then it will change. But yet we want everything catered to us. And I'm just like, guys, if you don't want Coke prices going any higher, stop buying Cokes.
Yeah.
It's that fucking simple.
I think that that's very true in terms of like things that are, like, because I could argue the other side, right? Like where things are like,
but rent is going down. I've shown you.
Yeah, gas prices are going down too, right? Like all those things are going down
because people can't afford stuff.
Yeah, and so like it's going to adjust too, right?
Let me just go real quick.
Yeah.
I do think what's going to happen is a recession, but it's going to be called the Great Correction. And I didn't get this on my own. This is my financial literacy podcast. Because things need to be corrected. And that's what's going to happen. I think we're complaining right now and everything, but there's going to be this great correction. It just sucks that this is a election year.
Yeah, I know, man. I wonder what this year is going to be like. It's probably going to be crazy. I don't even know who's running this year. Do you know? Yeah, lizard people.
Before I stopped, you were going to say sorry.
Like I think it could be argued for things like that, like Coke or getting coffee every day or whatever it is. I think it's hard on the other hand where it's like, oh, like, well, what house am I supposed to buy then? If I can't afford this and I have kids and things like that, like I need to afford maybe a little bit bigger house or whatever it is. So there's some things that I think that can definitely be fixed, right? Like maybe groceries, gas prices, cars, etc., whatever, And then there's other things where it's just like, what are we supposed to do, you know, in terms of like, where am I supposed to live if this is all that's available to me, especially since we've seen videos or financial literacy people talk about how like the older generation is like sitting on their homes and not selling. And then it like raises the price of everything else, or their, you know, their value of their home goes up. And then, you know, once they're dead or whatever it is, now you have to buy this house for, you know, 2 times what it's actually worth or whatever it is. So it's difficult. You know, I think like you said, there's some truth to it. There's also some like, you know, we can control. Not everything is out of our control, right? It's just like, oh, well, we're just gonna be slaves and die.
Vote
you know?
with your money. Like,
Yeah,
I think that's
definitely.
when people complain about Netflix going up in price, or they're doing the thing that they're doing. Yet Netflix went up in total revenue because more people purchase Netflix.
Yeah.
What do you want them to do?
So of course, right?
You're bidding into what they want.
As a business, they're just gonna be like, okay, well, that was fine. You know, let's just raise it again next time. You know.
So this one's the next one you sent me was about the CIA and operatives, and they have to learn
to
de-Americanize themselves. Did you read it?
I read a little bit of it.
It was so good, dude.
Right.
Like, you don't think about the way you walk, the way we eat.
Yeah.
You know, we slouch a little bit more. That we're not very European yet. So she has to like teach them how to be European-esque.
Yeah, how to not be American, not to be super loud. But yeah,
how hard is that?
It's because you don't even know, right?
Yeah.
There's so many things that we do that are inherently American, right? Just like English people do things that are inherently English or whatever it is, right? Like it's just like you know that they're from there, right? Because of the way that they eat or whatever. Like one of the main things that I remember was like a little shocking to me when I was in England is that like Camille was like, do not at any point eat with your hands. And I was like, excuse me, what? Like, that's all we do here. You know, it's like, I mean, my burger and my fries, like doing all this stuff. Everything over there is eaten with a fork and knife, no matter what it is. It's just like that, everything, hamburgers, fries. I mean, chips, sorry, bro. Absolutely everything is like eaten with fork and knife, everything. And so it was super interesting because I was just like, oh, like, you know, like trying to like not be rude.
It doesn't taste as good.
What do you mean it doesn't taste as good?
Dude, this feeling right here is so satisfying. Like the burger,
and so like that's one of the things, right? But I think in this one they were talking about like a distinctly American lean that we have, which is like a shoulder against the wall with like a foot on it, or leaning on your back with like a foot on the wall. That is like an American thing. And I had no idea, right? Like you just do it. But yeah, that was really, really cool of like operatives who like have to be taught to like because I think what they're saying is that if you're undercover and you're supposed to be a Russian person or something, they're going to be like, what the hell? Like, you're acting like an American right now. Like, clearly you're not, you know?
Yeah, like you have to eat slower and stuff
like that.
Yeah,
smoke 18 cigarettes a day.
All right, this next one's really good news for everybody. So there's this 11-year-old who received gene therapy, and this person was 11, and they were deaf, and now they can hear with gene therapy.
So what? So explain this to me.
What they do is they inject this gene therapy item because there's a mutation in the cell into the ear, and it hits the hair in the ear, and it allows the ability to start hearing. I forgot what the gene mutation is called and everything like that. But it was from the New York Times. So if you want to look it up, it's on New York Times.
So obviously, or maybe not obviously, but I'm going to assume that this is only for people who were like maybe born deaf.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay. So not through accident, not through injury.
But it could be a future solution for people.
Right. This is like a step in that direction.
Yeah. So the hard part they talked about in this article was actually getting people who are deaf to commit to do this study, because they don't see deaf as a disease or healing. They see it as part of a community, and
that's
things like
their normal.
So that's their normal, right? Which makes total sense.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's why it's hard to further the studies on this and things like that. But it's a cool concept.
That is a cool concept. How interesting.
Yeah, I mean, the kid was from Morocco. He went to Spain, and that's when he found the doctor who was like, you could go to America and try this.
I bet they'll have more chance for people once I bet they get people who have become deaf later in life. I bet they're
going to be more willing to want to do
because I think that if you're born that way, you do get born into that sort of community, right? There's like almost maybe an empowerment in it or whatever it is, right? To be part of that. But I think that people, like if I were to become deaf today, I wouldn't really be like, oh, cool, I get to be part of the deaf community now. You know, I'd be like, fuck, I can't hear anymore. You know? And so I think I'd be more willing to be like, yeah, fix this, you know, as opposed to someone who was born that way and they like, accept it. You know?
Yeah, dude. All right. So before we go to Reddit Finds, fitness then and now. Dude, you show me those videos, right? There were any spandex and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Fitness was more about body weight control back then.
Yes, I think it was definitely, it was less about health, right? And more about, it's funny. So I don't know, maybe the older population that listens will maybe know there's a competition called the Crystal Light Aerobics Competition. And it was like, I don't even know what they were competing for. It was almost like a dance routine. It was just like an aerobic dance routine that they would do. But the thing is that was all of fitness. You know, you'd go buy VHS tapes or you'd watch a video or you'd, go to a class with friends or something and everybody was, have you seen The Nutty Professor?
Love the movie.
Yeah. So remember when he's trying to get fit and he goes to a class like that, they were like a trampoline class and everybody's moving around and stuff like that. And that was the fitness class, right? Mm-hmm. There was, what do they call them? Health spas, right? Back in the day, where it was like more of a place to just like go hang out, than it was to go like lift. Yeah. Only a certain small population of people like, Arnold and those guys were going to the gym and like lifting heavy shit, Yeah. And but that wasn't really seen as like the general population thing. That was like a weird sort of like, oh, that's an extreme person. But yeah, fitness then and now has changed so much. Like what we were just talking about. Yeah. How we were just talking about earlier, how it's like now we see a lot more people on social media who are talking about strength training than I ever see people talking about an aerobics class. Like no one really talks about that anymore.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how new fitness is and how it's evolving.
Yeah.
All right, Reddit finds. The first one was really cool, the alligator room.
That was cool, man. Yeah, so apparently like when it gets really, really cold, alligators will, I guess, go into sort of a dormancy slightly, like a hibernation type thing, which I thought only mammals did. But, well, I guess alligators, well, they're amphibians, right? I don't know. Anyway, they will stay in bodies of water and allow themselves to get frozen. Mm-hmm. And they do it and they poke their noses out just a little bit from the water. So I guess they can continue to obviously breathe throughout the season so that they can survive through it. I had no idea alligators did this. I did not know that this was part of their life cycle. I didn't know it was part of their like survival.
It was so cool. Very
cool, dude. So this guy's just like in the middle of some like, random lake and there's just alligators fucking frozen in the lake with their noses out, bro. It was insane. It was really, really cool.
That's cool. The second one, the kid tackles the ref. Dude, that's crazy. In a football game where the ref is just making a call.
Yeah.
Kicks out the kid. The kid gets back on the field while he's making the call. Straight up just, boom, jacks the
bangs
ref.
Him, yeah. I think this was a high school, too.
Yeah, it was
which
high
is
school.
Concerning.
You know what's concerning is I read something about this Am I the Asshole on Reddit, and it was about this lady. She's like, is she the asshole for getting this kid in trouble? So, like, the steps were this kid did like $2,200 in damage in, I think, her car.
Oh, wow.
Right, because high school kids play pranks and stuff like that. This kid was very intelligent, had scholarships and stuff like that. She went to the parents and said, "Hey, y'all need to pay for this. I'll allow your kid to do this." They said, "No, just let it go. Whatever, just eat it. Whatever, like eat the $2,200." So she's like, she went to the cops, and the cops told her the story, and everything, and the cops were like, "Well, you don't want to hurt this kid's career or anything like that." And she's like, no, like I'm pressing charges because this is how much damage it is. If it was $20, it'd be different. $2,200, that's a lot of money. And so she presses the charges or whatever. And so this kid loses scholarships, loses a lot of things. She wasn't the asshole. The parents were the issue, right?
Yeah.
And I think too many times, I think this comes down to parenting, things like this.
I think come down to parenting too. And I think it also comes down to people nowadays, especially the younger generation, like not having consequences.
Yeah.
Like, dude, if you did $2,200 worth of damage to someone's house, to someone's car, I think people would think about it different. What if you did $2,200 worth of damage to me physically?
Yeah.
Right. What if I had to go to the hospital because you broke my leg or something like that? Right. I don't think anybody would be like, well, he's a kid, it's whatever. No, dude, like you did something, you need to face the consequences of it. You can't go through life thinking that you can do things to people and get away with it.
Yeah. I agree.
You're creating a bad generation, you're creating, this is the problem, you know what I mean, that everybody complains about. Is like, oh, you can't handle anything, there's no consequences, it's like, well, she's trying to do it, and I cannot believe that everybody was telling her no. That's insane.
The cops, the parents, And then not only that, dude, I think fighting is a necessity. It just is. And I think we've taken it out of schools and stuff like that. A kid needs to be able to defend themselves.
Yeah.
But also the kid that starts it needs to get in trouble more than the kid that actually defends themselves.
It's funny. It's always that, right? I wonder why. I wonder why that is. Because so many times do I hear like, oh, well, I was getting bullied and then, I punched him and then I got suspended. Yeah. And it's like, and then that kid gets to walk off scot-free like, well, nothing happened.
I think we got to give people consequences to the right people.
Yeah.
And that's sending the right message.
I'll never understand that.
Me neither. All right. So we're talking about the first study. This is at Ohio State University. A study found that stress through its propensity to drive up inflammation in the body is linked to metabolic syndrome, leading research to suggest that a cheap and relatively easy stress management techniques may be one way to help improve biological health outcomes. So pretty much inflammation and stress is what causes metabolic syndrome.
Like diabetes and things like
diabetes, high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. 1 in 3 Americans have metabolic syndrome.
Yeah.
So this just tells you the stress state of Americans, right? And we just talked about earlier in the podcast how stress really affects everything.
Yes.
Literally, stress affects your eating choices. Stress affects your sleep. Stress affects if you work out and you too hard and you're stressing, it's going to make you catabolic.
Decision making.
Therefore, you're going to lose quality tissue, and therefore you're more likely to have diabetes or high blood pressure and stuff like that.
I wonder if this is one of those things where I do agree with this. I do. But I also wonder if it's one of those things where it's like maybe it's not directly stress, but then the choices that you make while you're stressed.
So if you read the study, they did talk about that.
Yeah. So that's what I would say is that like, okay.
If you read it.
Like we talk about all the time, right? Like if you're stressed, you make poor decisions, you eat worse at night, or you eat more comfort foods, things like that. And then so like it makes a lot of sense, right? As to why this would happen.
And so in the study too, they talked about that, and they talked about the average age of these people were like about 52 that they studied. So that's when you're in your most stress. Probably you have your kids like graduating high school. You have a stressful job because you're at a higher position and things like that. So that's why they studied that group as
interesting.
In there. All right. This next one, new research finds half cardio, half strength training reduces cardiovascular disease. So it's shown in this study that doing half and half versus just aerobic only was just as beneficial as aerobic only for cardiovascular disease. Now, where I would say it's even better than cardio only is what we just talked about, the metabolic diseases of cardiovascular disease, high blood pressure, metabolic syndrome, all those things. If you have more muscle, your metabolism is stronger. You can eat more, get away with more. You can sleep better, be more anabolic.
Yeah, because this is clearly just cardiovascular disease. Another thing I remember when I was learning about training and getting my certification and stuff like that is that they would say pretty often in there that like resistance training did just as much for the cardiovascular system as like cardiovascular training in some ways, right? Like there maybe the cardiovascular was just a little bit better because it was more specified for that type of adaptation. But there's so much that resistance training can do that you don't necessarily need to get through cardiovascular training. Am I saying don't do cardio? No, right? Because it still is very important for health risks, things like that, improving general overall health. I'm not in the no cardio, right? Like thing.
But cardio once a week now.
Yeah. But it is super, super interesting to think that like you could run 14 miles a day, or you could run 7 and do 30 minutes of resistance training and still get the same benefit. You know what I mean?
All right, before we go into the fitness questions, find us on Apple and Spotify. You can rate and review us, leave a comment. Also, if you are looking for us on YouTube, it's Strength Solutions Podcast. Below, leave a comment, rate and review. Then we have a website, ssempowered.com. We have free blogs, free guides, which we just came out with the Cost of Getting Lean guide. And we have programs for purchase. Then, if you're looking for email, it's strengthsolutionsempowered@gmail.com. Then, if you're looking for us on social media, we have Facebook Strength Solutions, TikTok strength.solutions.pod, and Instagram Strength Solutions Empowered. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
All right, so let's talk about this first question here.
Let's get it.
I heard a trap bar deadlift is better than a barbell deadlift. Should I just do trap bar deadlift?
No.
So this is how I tell people: nothing's better or worse, especially in this case, right? They're used two different ways.
Yeah.
Now, if I had someone with a back issue or something like that, I would rather you trap bar deadlift. Also, trap bar deadlift does really good at placing tension on your feet, like from an athletic perspective.
Yeah.
Versus just on your hamstrings.
Yeah.
And a little bit more on the quads, right? So I think from an athletics perspective, I would rather use a trap bar than a barbell deadlift. Now, there's a lot of lifts in life that you have to learn to load yourself like a barbell deadlift.
Right, because most of the time you're going to be lifting things in front of you, right?
Yes,
Interiorly
correct.
loaded, yeah. Whether it's a box or your kid or something like that, it's always going to be in front of you, right? So I think that's an important aspect. I do the same thing when I'm teaching people how to deadlift. I'll still do a lot of barbell work, but I will sometimes throw in sets of trap bar deadlift just because sometimes it's easier to get into that position. Trap bar allows for more of a squatted deadlift, right, than a barbell does. I'll use it for people who are smaller, right, who maybe can't hinge over as well, and getting into a barbell deadlift position is maybe a little uncomfortable, or just trying to figure out the technique is hard. Trap bar deadlift is a great way to start, right, so they can at least start getting used to it and then kind of move them over to the barbell over time. I do use it a lot for like power movements too. Like if I want to do maybe some speed pulls or something like that, I'll most likely go to the trap bar more than the barbell. Safer, right? Then there's, as training and stuff like that, there's really no reason to put your client through like something like that unless like absolutely needed. Yeah. Do I want them to be able to do it at barbell at some point? Yeah, of course, but if at the time they're ready for the trap bar and they can do it there, then I'm probably going to pick that.
Yeah. And if they have back issues, why am I to put their back under that load?
Right. Yeah.
And it depends how I deadlift too. Like, am I deadlifting for heavy weight, or if I'm deadlifting for reps and just learning how to feel that movement?
Yeah.
And those things matter. This tells you how unique it is.
Right.
There's no such thing as better. Everything's a tool. I would say these are really good, like gross motor movements to like bring that anabolic signal that we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
So you could go either way with this.
I think one of the things with this that brings up a point, like you said, it's different, right? I don't think any exercise really can be compared to another exercise, even if it's like in the same body part, right? Like it's hard to compare a front squat to a normal squat. Yeah. It's hard to compare a trap bar deadlift to a barbell deadlift, right? And I think a lot of people try and do that, right? Where they're like, which one's the better one? Which one is the best one to do?
They do this either or.
Yeah. Where these are completely different exercises. All of them. Every single one is a completely different exercise that does a completely different thing. They can't really be compared. Nothing is better than the other one. It's all going to just depend on what you want.
Question number 2. When I work out, does it matter if I warm up, or can I warm up by going straight to the exercise and just doing it lighter?
Ooh, I like this one a lot. So this is something that I actually changed throughout the course of my training, right? Training people, is that I would have them sort of do like this whole mobility routine, doing all this stuff, or, go 5 minutes on the elliptical and get quote unquote warmed up, right? Yeah. Maybe do this, whatever it is. And honestly, through research that we've read, things like that, I've found that even I personally do better just doing the exercise for like warm up sets and then going into the exercise itself, especially with bigger compound movements, right? Like with squats, whenever my clients come in, if they really need to do some mobility, maybe I'll have them do some beforehand. But most of the time it's like, hey, give me 2 or 3 sets, maybe 12, 15 reps with just the bar. Get moving, right? Get things activated. Wake up, right? The central nervous system for this specific movement. And then we'll add our weight on as we continue going on. And I find more comes from that than doing some mobility and then going straight into like a heavy set or something like that.
So I think for someone who's newer to the practice of exercise and anything like that, I tend to lean more, let's do some mobility exercises, priming, and then go into the movement, because they can't do the movement proficiently yet.
Right.
But as you become more experienced, there's less time that you need to spend on this mobility move, and then more time you could work on just going straight into a light barbell workout or whatever it is that you're doing. So for example, if I was brand new, I would try to do my 90-90, and then I would go to my glute bridges, and then I would do this, and then I would go in my squat. But now when I go squat, I focus more on, okay, my ankles are the issue. I'm going to do the combat stretch. I'm going to do the combat stretch real quick, and then I'm going to get into light loading. It's going to take 2 to 3 minutes. So I believe as you get more experience and the better you get, the less time you have to spend on your warm up, because you're able to get into the movement better.
Faster, yeah.
So I think it's more based off experience than it is do this all the time and do that. And I think that's where people get manipulated again into thinking this is the way to warm up. This is the only way to do it. Because I've seen where there's trainers who do this same exact warm up with every client. And then that's 10 minutes right there. So there's 10 minutes less of training when this client may need it, but the other client may not need it.
Yeah, I think that's another thing too, is like as trainers, we really have to like manage our time, right? Because, you know, I have 45 minutes with them, or I have a minute with them. I'm sorry, a minute, an hour with them, or you have 30 minutes or whatever it is, right? So it's like, you really have to think like, what's the most important things that we have to do here? Do I need to have them do a whole 10-minute mobility routine? You know, like you said, if it's a new client, I'm probably going to have them do that, right? If it's a client I've had for 2 years, get under the bar, please, and let's do some warm-up sets, you know, because we don't necessarily need that.
And you do a warm-up set, then you do like, oh, I'm weak in this area today, like my glutes are not firing, let's do a glute bridge, let's go back to a warm-up set, and then we're into it.
Yeah. The only thing I would say on this one that I maybe would advise against not doing, just because of the amount of research I've seen and things like that, is that, yes, I would say you could do priming, fine. You could do mobility, yes. You could do light sets, great. I would not stretch.
Static stretching.
Yeah, I would not do static stretching before any sort of lifting, because
dynamic's okay.
Dynamic is okay too. Yeah, I like dynamic, not ballistic, but I do like dynamic. But yeah, I would say that is the only thing that I would say is not a good warm up. And cardio too. Don't run a mile before you go lift. Don't do that.
Question number 3: is soreness a great indicator of a really good workout?
Hey, we just talked about this.
No, it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, it doesn't mean anything. I think for me, like, okay, so today I'm sore because 2 days before, I did a new program I've never done before. So the exercises were a little bit more novel, a little more stimulus. It was the first time I've lifted heavy in a long time. So I expect to be sore because my body isn't used to this, right? Yeah. I expect as time goes on, maybe after this week, maybe the next week, I hope that I'm not sore anymore, because that would explain to me that I'm doing the proper amount of volume, the right amount of intensity. I'm not destroying my body, right? Yeah. I think that having a soreness sometimes kind of indicates like, oh, I did something new, right? I did something new. I did something different. I did something that maybe needs work, et cetera, et cetera. But you shouldn't always be sore, nor should you be looking for soreness all the time. You know, I'll have clients who come in and say like, oh man, I was really sore after I lost it. I'm like, cool, that's awesome. Like, hopefully it goes away by tomorrow, you know, something like that. Like, I'm not looking for you to be sore all the time.
You can't be sore too long. You don't want to be sore like past 2 days.
Yeah. Now, again, if you're super new, like we were talking about earlier, tough luck. You're going to be sore for a long time. I remember for the first like year of my training, I was sore after every workout. You know, it's just the way it was, because maybe I wasn't recovering right. Maybe it was just so new to me, et cetera, whatever it is. But yeah, I wouldn't really say it's an indicator of a really good workout. I think it's an indicator of a new workout, or that you did too much.
So what I want to say is a good indicator is, am I getting better?
Yeah.
I think, are you getting a better range of motion? Let's say I did 100 pounds, 6 reps, now I could do 8 reps at the same weight. It is, you know, do I feel better after my workouts? And do I have more energy?
Was there no pain during my workout?
Was there no pain?
Right,
exactly. Yeah. Like, those are better indicators than soreness. It's just psychologically, we've been told as humans, if you're not sore, you didn't get enough workout or anything like that.
You didn't work hard enough.
Soreness is just a small piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, and really not a super important one either.
All right, question number 4. If I have an athlete that is at a higher level, is there things I can do to make them better?
Yeah, I think there's always something you can do to be better.
So I'm always cautious when it comes to athletes at a high level. And I think with this question, it's not more about your jobs to get them that much better. It's more about making them more proficient with their movement.
Yeah.
There's a reason that a athlete is at this high level. It's not because their training took them to this way. Yes, their training contributed, but they're playing a sport. So therefore, they're faster, stronger. They may be genetically gifted. On top of that, highly disciplined. There's a lot of things that go into a high-level athlete. Your goal, if someone's getting paid millions of dollars, is to make sure that person doesn't get injured. Yeah. And you get them more proficient in their movement. Yeah. And so sometimes you got to think about, maybe I don't barbell back squat them. and I try bar deadlift them, and
Right.
we do different things that
Yeah.
we're working on concepts that are more about explosiveness and hitting the ground versus as much as we were lift. Because if I have an athlete who's 210 and they're this strong, right, and they gain 10 pounds, but yet let's say 10 pounds is here, but their strength only goes up half of that, they're going to be less proficient. So it's not even about gaining weight. So you got to watch their weight as well.
Yeah.
So it's about explosive movements a lot of times in most sports.
I think it's always about like just the specificity. Like you said, it's like if I have a high level athlete that's coming into me and maybe they already trained their sport with someone else, right? Like their coach or whatever it is, and they're just coming in to do more strengthening, more conditioning, whatever. I'm going to look at weak points, right? I'm going to look at the specificity of their training. Like you said, if they're a basketball player, you know, I'm going to have them do a quarter squat, right? Something like that, because they don't need to be doing full range of motion. I don't need them bench pressing, right? I think I saw this thing the other day where it was like during the NBA combine or something like that. Kevin Durant, like his max bench press was like 165.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like, okay, that doesn't matter because he literally doesn't need to be able to bench press a whole bunch of weight, right? Like
He doesn't push people off his body.
He doesn't push people off his body. He's not coming off the ground a whole bunch of the time. He's not doing any of that stuff. So it's just not important, right? So I was just thinking about what they need from their training, how to get them there, and definitely how to do it in the safest way.
Yeah, and there's a lot of good trainers out there that deal with athletes if you're looking for Pacific sport and stuff like that. There's a lot of good ones. And I think too many times we're trying to recreate the wheel when these guys are already ahead. Just follow what they're doing and then take what they're doing and make it your own kind of thing. All right, guys, if you like what we're doing, please share on Apple and Spotify and rate and review us. Then, if you're looking for us on YouTube, it's Strength Solutions Podcast. Comment below. Please subscribe and follow. Give us that goody good.
Oh, yeah.
And then, if you're looking for a website, it's ssempowered.com. We have free blogs, free guides. Remember, we have the Cost of Getting Lean, protein cheat sheets on there. So check it out. We have programs as well for purchase. Then, if you're looking for us, we have Strength Solutions Empowered at gmail.com to email us future fitness questions. Then we have social media, Facebook Strength Solutions, TikTok Strength Solutions, strength.solutions.pod, and we have Instagram Strength Solutions Empowered. I'm Strength Solutions Edwin.
I'm Strength Solutions Nathaniel.
Until next time, guys, what?